Emily walked into the cafe early in the morning, just as the sun was rising and the city was slowly coming to life. The smell of fresh bread, brewed coffee, and warm pastries greeted her as she tied her apron and arranged the tables. The cafe was known for its cozy charm and for being a place where wealthy people sometimes came to escape the glare of the city. Emily had been working there for a few years, and she loved it because it gave her a chance to meet people from all walks of life. She liked being on her feet, helping customers, and seeing the smiles when someone enjoyed their food. Today felt like any other day at first. The morning crowd was steady but not overwhelming. Emily moved quickly, greeting everyone politely and taking their orders with care. She had a calm, cheerful manner that put people at ease, and most customers appreciated that. As she poured coffee and handed out freshly baked croissants, she noticed the usual regulars nodding at her, and it gave her a small sense of pride. She liked the idea that even though she worked hard and didn't earn much, she made people feel welcome and valued. But then the door opened a little too loudly, and Emily looked up. In walked Veronica Hale, a socialite known for her sharp tongue and extravagant lifestyle. Veronica always attracted attention when she entered a room. She was tall, impeccably dressed, and moved with the confidence of someone used to getting what she wanted. The moment she stepped inside, heads turned, and a hush seemed to settle over the cafe. Some people whispered quietly, and Emily could feel the tension in the air. Veronica's mood seemed sour from the start. She didn't greet anyone but scanned the cafe with an impatient look, tapping her designer bag as if she expected the world to move faster around her. Emily approached with her usual polite smile, ready to take her order. "Good morning, ma'am," Emily said softly. "What can I get for you today?" Veronica's eyes narrowed slightly. "I'll have the eggs Benedict and make it quick. I'm busy, you know." Emily nodded, keeping her calm. "Of course, it will be ready in just a few minutes. Would you like any coffee or juice while you wait?" Veronica huffed, clearly impatient. "Coffee, black, and make sure it's strong. I don't have time to deal with weak coffee." Emily didn't react to the sharp tone. She moved swiftly to the counter to prepare the order, taking care to follow every detail. She had learned over the years that remaining calm and polite, even in the face of rudeness, was the best approach. But Veronica wasn't the type to wait quietly. She began muttering to her friends about how slow the service was and how she expected better anywhere she went. Other customers tried to ignore the drama, focusing on their breakfasts or conversations, but it was hard not to notice. Veronica's friends laughed nervously at her complaints, glancing around to see if anyone else was noticing. Emily continued her work, feeling a knot of anxiety in her stomach. She didn't want a scene, but she also knew she couldn't control someone else's bad behavior. As Emily carried the coffee to Veronica's table, she tripped slightly on the edge of a rug. The coffee stayed in the cup, but a small napkin slipped from her hand. Veronica's eyes widened in anger. "Watch where you're going. Do you even know how to do your job?" she snapped, her voice loud enough that nearby tables turned to look. Emily quickly bent to pick up the napkin, apologizing softly. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll be more careful." Veronica waved her off, but the irritation didn't fade. Every movement Emily made was scrutinized, and even small mistakes were magnified. She felt her cheeks burn, but she continued to serve with patience, pouring coffee and arranging the plate of eggs perfectly. The other customers whispered among themselves, some feeling uncomfortable, others shaking their heads at the socialite's behavior. Emily tried to keep her focus, reminding herself that she was doing her best. She had seen difficult customers before, but there was something about Veronica that made the tension heavier. It wasn't just anger. It was a sense of entitlement, of someone who believed the rules didn't apply to them. Veronica's complaints continued, growing louder and more dramatic. She called the food cold, the eggs overcooked, and even commented on the color of the plates. Emily kept her tone gentle and respectful, acknowledging each complaint and doing her best to make things right. She brought fresh coffee, reheated the eggs, and even offered a complimentary pastry, hoping it might calm the situation. But Veronica was not satisfied. She leaned back in her chair and looked around, as if daring someone to disagree with her. Her friends glanced nervously at each other, sensing the storm that was building. Emily felt a wave of dread. She had never wanted attention like this, and she certainly didn't want anyone to see her humiliated. She took a deep breath and reminded herself to stay calm, to not let the socialite's anger affect her. Veronica's voice rose again, sharp and cutting. "This is unacceptable. I pay good money to be treated like royalty, and I will not tolerate this level of incompetence." Emily nodded, her hands steady even as her heart raced. "I understand, ma'am. I will make sure everything is corrected immediately." She moved quickly to the counter again, trying to fix the situation before it escalated further. The cafe's manager watched from a distance, aware that things were about to get out of hand. He knew Veronica's reputation but also knew that Emily didn't deserve to be treated this way. He hesitated, unsure when to step in, as he observed Emily handling the situation with grace despite the humiliation. Meanwhile, Veronica's friends whispered among themselves, worried that the scene might spiral out of control. Some customers discreetly recorded the interactions on their phones, sensing that this was more than just a typical complaint. Emily worked diligently, trying to ensure every detail was perfect, but she could feel the weight of the socialite's gaze, a silent reminder that nothing she did would be enough. The tension in the cafe was palpable. Every step Emily took, every gesture she made, seemed to be under scrutiny. She could feel her stomach tighten, but she refused to show fear or frustration. She reminded herself that she had handled difficult situations before, that she was capable and strong. But this was different. The anger coming from Veronica seemed almost personal, as if Emily herself had done something wrong simply by existing. As the minutes passed, Emily continued to serve with calm determination. She smiled politely at other customers, nodded at the manager, and kept the food coming out correctly. But inside, a storm of emotions swirled. Frustration, anxiety, and a deep desire to just get through the morning without further incident. Veronica's complaints became more exaggerated, drawing the attention of the entire cafe. Her voice echoed off the walls, and Emily could feel eyes on her, some sympathetic, some curious. She tried to ignore it, focusing on her tasks, but the humiliation was hard to shake. She reminded herself of why she worked here. The people she helped, the small moments of joy she brought to customers, and the pride she felt in doing her job well. And then, as Emily adjusted a chair for another customer, she sensed that the situation was about to reach a turning point. Veronica's expression darkened, her eyes sharp, and her posture tense. Emily didn't know what would happen next, but she knew she had to stay composed. She had no idea that this morning, which had started like any other, would soon change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The calm before the storm was about to end, and Emily's quiet strength would soon be put to the ultimate test. Emily continued moving between tables, trying to serve everyone while keeping a polite smile on her face. The tension from earlier with Veronica still hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Customers were beginning to notice the strange energy in the cafe. Some whispered to each other, unsure of whether to intervene or just observe. Emily focused on doing her job well, making sure the orders were correct and the coffee cups were filled. Veronica sat at her table, her friends trying to keep her calm but failing. Every small movement or mistake from Emily seemed to irritate her more. When Emily set down a fresh plate of eggs Benedict, Veronica's eyes flicked over it sharply. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice loud enough for others to hear. "I asked for no sauce on top. Can't you even get that right?" Emily's hands shook slightly, but she stayed composed. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I can make another one right away without the sauce," she said gently, hoping to calm her down. She didn't raise her voice or argue. She simply offered a solution. Veronica's face twisted with frustration. "Another one? How many mistakes are you planning to make? This is ridiculous." As Emily turned to take the plate back to the kitchen, she accidentally brushed against the edge of a chair. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but Veronica saw it. In an instant, she stood up, towering over Emily. Her hands grabbed the side of Emily's dress near the waist and, in one sudden motion, She ripped it slightly. The fabric tore with a loud rip, and a gasp ran through the cafe. Customers froze in shock, some even dropping their phones as they recorded the incident. Emily froze, her heart pounding. She felt a mix of shock and humiliation. The tears threatened to fall, but she forced herself to stay composed. "Please, ma'am, I didn't mean to," she began, her voice trembling. Veronica cut her off sharply. "I don't want excuses. You should know your place. How dare you come near me like that?" Her friends looked on in horror, unable to stop her outburst. Some customers murmured, clearly outraged by the public humiliation happening in front of them. The staff tried to stay calm, unsure of what to do. The manager rushed over, putting a hand gently on Veronica's shoulder. "Ma'am, please calm down. There's no need for..." But Veronica wasn't listening. Her anger was boiling over, and her eyes darted to everyone around her, daring anyone to challenge her. Emily stood still, holding her torn dress, trying to control her breathing. She didn't want to escalate the situation further, but she also felt a rising sense of disbelief at the cruelty she was experiencing. The customers' whispers grew louder, and some politely tried to offer Emily a comforting smile. The cafe felt smaller, more tense, and every sound seemed amplified. The clinking of cutlery, the soft murmur of conversations, and Veronica's harsh breathing as she fumed. Emily moved carefully, keeping her hands steady as she adjusted the dress and tried to continue her work without drawing more attention. Veronica's friends exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to leave or intervene. They knew the socialite's temper, but this behavior was escalating beyond normal. One friend whispered, "Maybe we should just go. This is getting out of hand." But Veronica waved them off, insisting she wasn't finished with her display. Emily tried to continue serving other customers, pouring coffee and clearing tables, but her mind kept returning to the incident. She felt a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. How could someone act so cruelly over something so small? She reminded herself to stay professional, to keep moving, and to not let the anger of another person destroy her morning. Meanwhile, some customers pulled out their phones, capturing the scene. They were shocked, but they also wanted to make sure the world knew what was happening. Veronica didn't seem to care. In fact, her expression became more intense, as if the attention only fueled her anger. Emily's manager finally stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, you need to leave or calm down. This is not acceptable behavior." Veronica turned to him with a look of disbelief. "Excuse me? I am a customer here. I can do what I want." The manager held his ground. "You cannot treat our staff this way. If you continue, I'll have to ask you to leave." Emily felt a wave of relief at the support, but she still stood quietly, trying to make herself as small as possible, wishing the situation would end. She looked down at her torn dress and quietly adjusted it, hoping no further damage would occur. Veronica's anger was not diminishing. She paced slightly near the table, muttering under her breath about incompetence and how the world had gone wrong. Then, in a sudden dramatic gesture, she grabbed Emily's apron and tugged it sharply. The fabric ripped again, louder this time. Gasps filled the room, and a few customers quietly whispered their disapproval. Emily's face flushed with embarrassment, but she didn't cry out. She wanted to stay strong and not give Veronica the satisfaction of seeing her break. She carefully held the torn pieces of her dress and spoke softly. "Please, ma'am. I am only trying to do my job. I didn't mean to upset you." Veronica's eyes narrowed. "You think your apologies matter? You should know better. You are here to serve, not to make mistakes." At that moment, the cafe door opened again. A tall, composed man entered. His presence immediately drew attention, but he moved quietly, observing the scene. Emily noticed him for a brief moment, but her attention quickly returned to Veronica. The man didn't approach yet. He seemed to be assessing the situation, his gaze calm but sharp. Veronica's tirade continued, but the man's presence was quietly noticeable. Customers glanced at him, some whispering under their breath, recognizing him as someone influential. Emily, however, was too focused on keeping her composure to notice the growing tension that this man's presence was creating. Veronica, caught up in her anger, continued belittling Emily, completely unaware of the impact of the new arrival. She gestured wildly, pointing at the waitress, and accusing her of every small mistake she could think of. Her voice had risen so much that some of the cafe staff exchanged worried glances, unsure whether to intervene more forcefully. Emily, taking a deep breath, tried once more to calm the situation. She spoke softly but clearly. "I am very sorry for any mistakes, ma'am. I only want to provide the best service possible. I promise I will make sure everything is correct." Veronica's expression darkened further, but before she could respond, the tall man approached her table. His voice was calm, even, and firm. "Ma'am, may I have a word?" Veronica looked up, slightly startled. She hadn't noticed him at first, and his presence seemed to momentarily halt her anger. She blinked, momentarily confused by the interruption. The man's eyes were steady, and there was an undeniable authority in his voice. Emily watched from a distance, unsure who this man was or what he intended. Her hands still held the torn dress, but she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe someone would finally put an end to this public humiliation. The man addressed Veronica directly. "Your behavior toward our staff is unacceptable. You cannot treat someone this way." Veronica's lips pressed tightly together. She opened her mouth to protest but hesitated, sensing the seriousness in his tone. For the first time that morning, she seemed unsure of herself, her usual confidence faltering slightly. Emily took a quiet step back, her heart still racing but her mind starting to feel a small sense of relief. She realized that she wasn't alone anymore. Someone was standing up for her, and perhaps this ordeal was finally reaching a turning point. The cafe remained tense, but the atmosphere shifted slightly. The whispers of the other customers were no longer just about Veronica's anger. They were also about the man's calm and commanding presence. Emily straightened her back, feeling a spark of hope that the nightmare might be ending, even if she didn't yet know who this man was or what he planned to do next. And in that moment, the scene set in motion a series of events that would change Emily's life forever, turning a morning of humiliation into the beginning of something completely unexpected. The tall man walked closer to Veronica, his expression calm but unmistakably serious. The cafe seemed to quiet down even more, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Veronica's anger faltered for a brief moment as she looked at him, trying to gauge who he was. She had seen many people in her life who tried to challenge her authority, but there was something different about this man. There was a quiet confidence in his eyes, a calm strength that made her hesitate. Emily, still standing nearby with her torn dress clutched gently in her hands, watched the interaction with a mix of hope and curiosity. She had no idea who this man was, but she felt a sense of relief that someone was finally stepping in. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the lingering tension of the morning. She had never been treated so harshly in her life, and now, for the first time, it seemed like there might be a chance to end it. The man addressed Veronica firmly but without raising his voice. "Ma'am, your behavior toward our staff is not acceptable. You have humiliated a hardworking employee in front of others. That will not be tolerated." Veronica opened her mouth, ready to respond with one of her sharp, cutting remarks, but the man held up his hand. "I want to make this clear. Apologies are necessary, and I expect you to leave if you cannot behave properly." Veronica's friends exchanged nervous glances, sensing that this confrontation was serious. They whispered to each other, trying to figure out who the man was and why he had such authority. Veronica, for the first time that day, seemed uncertain. Her usual arrogance faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. She had never been spoken to in this way, especially not in public. Emily quietly adjusted her torn dress, feeling a small wave of relief. The fear that had weighed on her all morning began to lift, replaced by a cautious hope. She glanced at the customers who had been watching, many of whom were now recording the incident. She realized that this moment was not just about her. It had become a turning point in the cafe, a moment when the power dynamics shifted in a way that no one had expected. The man continued, his voice calm but firm. Mistreating someone who is simply doing their job is unacceptable. I suggest you reflect on your actions and leave before this escalates further. Veronica's face turned pale. She realized that she had misjudged the situation. The man wasn't just a stranger. He carried an air of authority that made it clear he was someone important. She hesitated, looking around the cafe as if trying to find support from her friends, but they were visibly uncomfortable. They avoided eye contact, unsure of how to help her or if they even should. Emily's manager stepped forward, offering a quiet nod of thanks to the man. "Thank you," he said softly. "We've tried to handle it, but she wouldn't listen. Your intervention means a lot." The man gave a small, reassuring nod and then turned his attention back to Emily. His voice softened as he asked, "Are you all right?" Emily forced a small smile, trying to steady her voice. "I'm fine, thank you. It's been a difficult morning." The man's eyes softened as he looked at her. "I can see that. You've handled yourself very well. Please don't let her behavior affect you." Emily felt a warmth in her chest at his words. They were simple, yet they carried a weight that comforted her. She had spent so much of the morning feeling powerless and humiliated, but this man's calm presence reminded her that not everyone would treat her this way. There were people who saw her effort, her patience, and her dignity, and they cared enough to stand up for her. Veronica, meanwhile, was still trying to regain her composure. She had never expected anyone to challenge her in public, and the realization that she had humiliated someone who had handled herself with grace left her flustered. She opened her mouth to speak but found that no words came out. The man's presence, his calm authority, and the disapproval from the cafe staff and customers created a moment of silence that spoke louder than any argument she could make. The man looked at Veronica once more. "If you cannot behave properly, I suggest you leave now. Otherwise, I will have to involve the authorities." Veronica's eyes widened. The thought of facing consequences, of being held accountable for her actions, was foreign to her. She had always believed that her status and wealth could shield her from any repercussions. For the first time, she realized that wasn't the case here. The cafe, the staff, and even the other customers were aligned in their support for Emily, and she felt a rare sense of vulnerability. Emily's manager stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You've done everything right. Don't let her get to you." Emily nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. She had been on edge all morning, but now she felt a small sense of peace knowing that someone respected her and stood up for her. The tears that had threatened to fall were still there, but she held them back, not wanting to make the situation more dramatic. Veronica finally took a step back, her shoulders slumping slightly. She glanced at her friends, who were looking at her with a mixture of pity and embarrassment. She realized that her behavior had been unacceptable and that she had overstepped in a way that would have consequences she hadn't anticipated. Without a word, she turned and walked toward the door, her friends following closely behind. The cafe let out a collective sigh of relief, the tension slowly dissipating. As Veronica left, Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the morning begin to lift. She had survived the ordeal, and more importantly, she had maintained her dignity. She glanced at the tall man, who gave her a reassuring smile before turning to leave the cafe. Curiosity got the better of her, and she asked softly, Who are you?" The man paused at the door, his smile gentle but knowing. "Someone who believes that everyone deserves respect, no matter their job or position. Take care of yourself." With that, he walked out, leaving Emily with a sense of wonder and relief. She couldn't help but think about how unexpected the morning had become. What had started as a normal day at work had turned into a public humiliation. Yet it had also introduced her to someone who showed her kindness, respect, and support. The cafe slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Customers resumed their conversations, staff continued their work, and Emily took a moment to straighten her apron and adjust her dress. She felt a renewed sense of strength. She had faced anger and cruelty, yet she had emerged with her dignity intact, and she realized that sometimes the smallest acts of courage could change everything. Later, As she served coffee and pastries, Emily noticed a few customers giving her discreet smiles and nods of encouragement. She felt a warm glow inside, a sense of being seen and appreciated for who she was and the effort she put into her work. The morning's events had shaken her, but they had also reminded her of her own resilience and the importance of standing strong in the face of unfairness. As Emily moved from table to table, serving with renewed energy, she couldn't stop thinking about the man who had stepped in. He had appeared at just the right moment, and his presence had made all the difference. She didn't know who he was or why he had been there, but she knew one thing. He had changed the course of her morning, and perhaps her life. For the first time that day, Emily allowed herself a small smile. The cafe felt lighter, the customers more relaxed, and the world outside seemed a little brighter. She realized that no matter how difficult a situation might seem, there were always moments of kindness, support, and unexpected allies that could make even the darkest mornings bearable. And as she continued her work, she carried that thought with her, knowing that she had not only survived the ordeal but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident in herself. The cafe slowly returned to its normal rhythm after Veronica and her friends left, but Emily could still feel the tension lingering in the air. She straightened her apron and adjusted her torn dress, trying to shake off the embarrassment of the morning. Her hands were still slightly trembling from the confrontation, but her mind was clearer now. She had survived the public humiliation and had even felt a small sense of relief thanks to the intervention of the tall man, whose calm authority had shifted the energy in the room. Emily continued serving the remaining customers with her usual politeness, making small talk and offering smiles. Each interaction felt lighter than before, and she realized how much the support of others, even strangers, could impact her mood. As she cleared plates and refilled coffee cups, she noticed some of the regular customers giving her discreet nods of encouragement. Their gestures were small but meaningful, reinforcing the idea that people did notice kindness and professionalism, even when others tried to tear it down. While Emily moved through the cafe, her mind kept drifting back to the man who had stepped in. She had not even caught his name, but there was something familiar in his presence, a feeling of calm reassurance that lingered in her memory. She wondered why he had appeared at that moment and what had drawn him to the situation. Despite not knowing him, she felt an inexplicable sense of trust and safety when he had spoken. Later in the morning, the cafe manager approached Emily quietly. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "That was a lot to deal with, and you handled it really well." Emily nodded, feeling a wave of gratitude. "I'm okay now. It was just overwhelming at the time. I've never had someone act like that toward me before." The manager smiled gently. "You stayed calm and professional, and that's what mattered. That man who stepped in, he knows what he's doing. I've seen him around before and people listen to him. He's someone important in the city, someone who doesn't let injustice slide." Emily's curiosity piqued. "Do you know who he is?" she asked quietly. The manager hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, his name is Daniel Carter. He's a well-known billionaire, but more than that, he's someone who values fairness and treats people with respect. He's not the type to flaunt his wealth. Most people don't even know he comes here sometimes." Emily's eyes widened. A billionaire? That explained his calm confidence and the way people immediately paid attention to him. She felt a mix of awe and disbelief. It was incredible to think that someone of such influence had stepped in to defend her, a waitress he didn't even know. As the morning continued, Emily served more customers, her mind still swirling with thoughts of Daniel Carter. She couldn't help but replay his words in her head, the calm authority in his voice, and the way he had stood up for her. She felt a sense of gratitude and also a renewed sense of confidence. If someone like him recognized the importance of fairness and respect, then she realized that standing her ground and being professional had been the right thing all along. Around midday, Emily was surprised to see Daniel Carter return to the cafe. This time, he walked directly to her side of the room, scanning the tables until he found her. When he approached, Emily felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. "Hello again," he said with a gentle smile. "I wanted to make sure you're doing all right. Are you okay after what happened earlier?" Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. Yes, thank you. I'm fine now. I appreciate you stepping in. It meant a lot. Daniel's smile widened slightly. I could see that you were handling yourself with grace despite the situation. Not everyone could do that. Emily felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. There was something sincere and genuine about him, a kindness that was rare and comforting. She nodded. It was difficult, but I tried to stay calm and professional. I didn't want things to get worse. Daniel looked at her thoughtfully, his gaze lingering for a moment. I admire that. It's not easy to remain composed when someone is treating you unfairly, especially in public. You showed strength today. Emily smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. Thank you. I just wanted to do my job and treat everyone with respect, even if they weren't treating me the same way. Daniel nodded, clearly impressed. That's a rare quality. Many people forget how important respect and kindness are. I can see that you haven't forgotten. There was a pause as they both regarded each other, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Emily realized that his presence was more than just about stepping in. It carried a deeper sense of support, a recognition of her character and resilience. Then, something unexpected happened. Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a small card. He handed it to Emily with a gentle nod. If you ever need anything, or if there's ever a situation where you feel threatened or uncomfortable, you can reach me directly. I want to make sure you're safe and respected. Emily's eyes widened as she took the card. She couldn't believe what she was holding. A direct line to a billionaire, someone who genuinely cared about her well-being. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched it, feeling a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what to say. Daniel smiled warmly. You don't need to say anything. Just remember that people notice courage and professionalism, and you displayed both today. Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to feel safe, respected, and seen. The humiliation and fear of the morning began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and appreciation for the unexpected kindness she had received. As Daniel turned to leave, he paused for a moment. I'll be around if you ever need anything. And Emily, he added with a small, knowing smile, you handled yourself wonderfully today. Don't forget that. Emily watched him walk away, feeling a mix of awe and inspiration. She couldn't believe how dramatically her morning had changed, from a public humiliation to a moment of unexpected support and recognition. She realized that sometimes the most unlikely people could have the biggest impact on your life. Throughout the rest of the day, Emily continued to serve customers, her confidence renewed. She moved with a lightness that hadn't been there before, smiling genuinely and engaging politely with everyone. Even when she adjusted her torn dress, she no longer felt embarrassed. Instead, she felt proud that she had maintained her dignity and had been recognized for it. By the end of her shift, Emily reflected on the events of the morning. She realized that challenges, even painful ones, could lead to unexpected blessings. The confrontation with Veronica had been difficult, but it had introduced her to someone who valued fairness, kindness, and courage. She understood now that the way she handled herself mattered, and that her strength and character were noticed, even by people who seemed far removed from her everyday life. As Emily left the cafe, she clutched the card Daniel had given her, a tangible reminder of the unexpected turn her day had taken. She walked with a sense of pride and calm, knowing that she had faced adversity and emerged stronger. The events of the morning had shown her that even in difficult moments, there were people who would stand up for what was right, and that kindness and respect could come from the most unexpected places. Emily knew that her life would continue, filled with the ordinary challenges of work and daily responsibilities. But she also knew that she had experienced something extraordinary, a moment of recognition and support that would stay with her forever. And as she looked ahead, she felt a renewed sense of confidence and hope, ready to face whatever challenges might come next, knowing that she had the strength, resilience, and dignity to overcome them. The morning had settled into a calm rhythm by the time Emily took a deep breath and leaned against the counter for a moment. The events with Veronica Hale were behind her, but the memory of the confrontation still lingered in her mind. She adjusted her torn dress and smoothed out her apron, trying to focus on the rest of the day. The cafe was bustling with customers now, but the tension from the morning had mostly dissipated. People were chatting quietly, enjoying their meals, and the clatter of dishes and soft hum of conversation made the cafe feel alive again. Emily moved from table to table, serving coffee, clearing plates, and chatting politely with the customers. Even though she was still processing what had happened, she felt a renewed sense of confidence and pride. The encounter with Daniel Carter had given her a perspective she would never forget. She had experienced humiliation and anger, but she had also received recognition and support from someone she respected immensely. As the morning turned into early afternoon, news of Veronica's outburst had begun to spread outside the cafe. Some customers had shared videos on social media, and the clips went viral quickly. The footage showed Veronica ripping the waitress's dress and berating her in front of everyone. People were shocked by her behavior, and many expressed outrage online. They praised Emily for her composure and professionalism, while condemning Veronica's actions. The cafe manager noticed the attention and approached Emily quietly. "People are talking about what happened," he said softly. "You've received a lot of support, and many are impressed by how well you handled yourself." Emily nodded, feeling a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "I didn't expect it to get this much attention. I just tried to stay calm and do my job." "That's exactly why people are responding so positively," the manager replied. "You showed strength and dignity, and it's inspiring to see someone handle such a difficult situation with grace." Emily felt a small smile tug at her lips. Despite the morning stress, she realized that her actions had made an impact. She had turned a moment of public humiliation into a testament to her character, and that was something she could carry with her for the rest of her life. Later in the afternoon, Daniel Carter returned to the cafe. This time, he arrived quietly without drawing much attention. He approached Emily with a warm smile, and she felt a wave of comfort and reassurance at his presence. "Hello again," he said softly. "I wanted to check in and make sure you're doing well after everything that happened." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude and relief. "I'm doing better now. Thank you again for stepping in earlier. It made a huge difference." Daniel smiled and looked around the cafe. "I could see that you were handling things professionally, but I wanted to make sure you knew that people like you are valued and respected. Not everyone gets that recognition, but it's important to me that you know your efforts don't go unnoticed." Emily felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She had been through a lot that morning, and to hear someone of his influence acknowledge her efforts was incredibly meaningful. "Thank you," she said softly. "It really means a lot." Daniel's gaze was kind and reassuring. "You've shown resilience, professionalism, and courage. That's not something everyone can do, and I hope you continue to carry that with you. It will serve you well in all aspects of life." Emily nodded, feeling a renewed sense of confidence. She realized that the morning's events had been a turning point. She had faced anger and humiliation, but she had also experienced support, kindness, and recognition. It was a powerful reminder that challenges could lead to growth and unexpected opportunities. As the day went on, Emily continued her work in the cafe, serving customers with renewed energy and a lightness she hadn't felt earlier. The remaining staff noticed the change in her demeanor, and some offered quiet words of encouragement. Emily felt a sense of pride in her ability to maintain composure and professionalism, even in the face of such an intense situation. By the evening, the cafe began to quiet down as the lunch crowd thinned. Emily took a moment to reflect on the day, thinking about the lessons she had learned. She realized that maintaining dignity, kindness, and professionalism could turn a negative experience into something positive. The way she had handled herself had not only earned respect from others but had also reinforced her own sense of self-worth. As she prepared to leave for the day, Daniel approached once more. This time, his presence was more personal, and there was a warmth in his smile that Emily had not noticed before. "Emily," he said gently, "I wanted to invite you to join me for a small dinner sometime. I think it would be nice to continue our conversation and get to know each other better." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She felt a mixture of surprise, excitement, and curiosity. I would like that, she replied softly. Thank you for the invitation. Daniel nodded, his expression kind and sincere. It's my pleasure. I think we could learn a lot from each other. You've shown remarkable strength today, and I'd like to support and encourage that. Emily felt a sense of happiness and anticipation. The day had started with humiliation and anger, but it was ending with connection, recognition, and the promise of new opportunities. She realized that life could change in unexpected ways, and that sometimes challenges could lead to the most meaningful experiences. As Emily left the cafe and stepped into the evening air, she felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. The events of the day had reminded her that resilience, kindness, and professionalism were invaluable traits. She knew that she had not only survived a difficult situation, but had also gained the respect and support of someone extraordinary. Walking home, Emily reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood that difficult experiences could reveal inner strength, and that standing up for oneself with dignity could lead to unexpected opportunities. She felt grateful for the support she had received and for the chance to prove to herself that she could handle adversity with grace. The next morning, Emily returned to the cafe with a sense of confidence and calm. She greeted the staff and customers warmly, and for the first time, she felt that her work was truly appreciated not just for the service she provided, but for the character she displayed. She moved through the cafe with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever challenges came her way, knowing that she had the strength, resilience, and support to overcome them. Over the following weeks, Emily continued her work at the cafe, now with a deeper understanding of her own worth and the impact of kindness and professionalism. The incident with Veronica became a distant memory, overshadowed by the recognition and support she had received. She remained focused on her work, but with a sense of pride and confidence that she had never felt before. Daniel Carter remained a presence in her life, offering guidance, support, and encouragement. Their connection grew stronger, built on mutual respect and admiration. Emily realized that the events of that morning had not only tested her resilience, but had also opened the door to a life-changing relationship that brought new opportunities and experiences. Looking back, Emily understood that the morning of humiliation and anger had been a turning point in her life. It had taught her the value of strength, dignity, and professionalism, and had introduced her to people who truly recognized and appreciated her character. She carried those lessons with her, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the inner strength and support to face them. And as Emily continued her journey, she walked with confidence, gratitude, and a renewed sense of purpose, ready to embrace whatever life had in store for her, knowing that courage, kindness, and professionalism could change everything in ways she had never imagined.